Hey there everyone, my name is Jenna. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be decorating our living room space for the holidays. And if you guys are familiar with this channel, you know that we love to get a high-end designer look on a budget. So I'm going to be sharing some styling tips and decorating ideas using affordable decor pieces to help give a space a more elevated look for the holidays. So I'm excited to start decorating with you all, and without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so this is the space that we're starting with after I cleared out all of the decor, and we did hope that we would have our cabinets and shelves installed in the arched open spaces by now, but we don't, so we're just gonna work with what we've got, and we can look forward to decorating the shelves when they're done next year. And the first thing that you can do if you have a smart TV that's totally free and helps to enhance the holiday aesthetic is just to search for holiday framed art on YouTube. And this is totally free and there's tons of images to choose from. I also searched for winter framed art and I got a lot of snowy landscape results, which I really liked. And this is great because there's a frame in the actual image, which gives off the illusion of a framed piece of art, which can be great for parties or gatherings. So I tested out a couple of different ones and I ended up going with this sweet snowy deer image, and I will link the YouTube video below as well as all of the decor that I can from this video, so that will all be listed down in the description box. So first I wanted to start with decorating the mantle, and for the past couple of years I've done more asymmetrical sweeping floral arrangements for the holidays where I layer floral and berry stems into my holiday garland for a unique and elegant look. But this year I kind of want to keep things a little bit more simple and rustic, so I'm just going to use this gorgeous Real Touch cedar garland, and I am obsessed with this stuff. I like that it's reasonably priced and it looks and feels so lifelike. I only used 2 garlands for our large mantle and it still fills out the space really nicely and it looks very natural. So next I wanted to add some height and interest on the ends of both sides of the mantle. So I just grabbed these brass candlesticks that I found at the thrift store, and I love the combination of that old world brass detail contrasted against the holiday greenery. You'll see a lot of brass in my holiday decorating because I love the rustic warmth that it brings to the space. And then for candles, I noticed that HomeGoods has a lot of fall clearance right now, and I found this set of pine cone LED wax candles for only $10. And even though pine cones can be associated with fall, I love that I can use them into the holiday season as well, and they just add so much texture, which helps relate the space back to nature and gives off that calming earthy feel, which I personally love. And these would also be really pretty on a Thanksgiving tablescape, just something festive that's still earthy and classic. So to balance out the other side of the mantle, I just added in this small terracotta planter, and then I placed a cheap craft store burlap tree inside, which gives off the illusion of a little potted tree. And then I used this frayed ribbon that I found on Amazon to tie around the pot to give it a more dressed up and festive feel. And this is going to be the first of many burgundy accents that you'll see me incorporate throughout the space. I personally love burgundy for the holidays because it adds a little pop, but it still gives off an elevated look that feels classic and timeless. So this is looking good so far now that we've balanced out the ends, but I do just want to add a little bit more interest to the garland itself. So if you all remember, several years ago I made some dried oranges that I used as cheap garnishes on my gifts, and I ended up just having a bunch of those left over, and they actually keep really well in a little plastic baggie. So I just placed those all throughout the garland for a little pop of color and texture that again feels really natural and rustic. So to pair with the oranges and keep with the earthy vibe, I just grabbed some of my favorite cranberry bowl filler just to pop next to the oranges and spread randomly throughout the garland for a subtle pop of that reddish burgundy color. So I am really happy with this. It's still interesting and festive, but the colors and materials feel really simple and rustic. I also love that this looks elegant and expensive, but we just used affordable garland, clearance and thrift store finds, cheap bowl filler from the craft store, and a simple DIY using a couple dollars worth of oranges. So next it is time to layer in the stockings, and I personally love a chunky knit stocking. It just adds so much texture and warmth, and I found these at Marshall's several years ago, and then I like to break up all of that repetition with a different style of stocking, so I always just place a tan one in front. And something else that I like to do every single year until the stockings are filled with gifts is I stuff the tops with some greenery picks. sticks. And I love these little juniper ones with the berries on them. They look super lifelike, and I just pop a couple in the tops of the stockings. This just helps things to, again, feel a little bit more rustic and styled. And you could also do this with greenery that you forage from outside as well. I just love that it gives off another simple, earthy layer of visual interest. And during the holidays, I am all about the layering, so I always like to add more in if I can for that really cozy, gathered look. So I also layered in this $10 brass bell detail for a touch of that vintage warmth. And I love this little bell cluster. I like that the bells are a variety of shapes and that it's the perfect size to hang on stockings, embellish a wreath, or just hang off of a doorknob. And then, like I said, we're going to be using this ribbon all over the place, but for a pop of that burgundy color, I just tied a bow onto the brass bell charm. And now that our mantle is all styled, I wanted to layer in some pieces underneath at the base of the fireplace for, again, that cozy layered look. So next I brought in this large vintage charcoal pot that I found at the antique store a while back, but you could use a large planter or just a simple thrifted basket for this. And basically what I like to do is make a little gathered arrangement here, kind of like I just went out into the woods and got some logs and branches for the fire. So these are birch logs that I found at Home Goods a while back, but you could use firewood or salvage logs and branches from outside. Then for a touch of greenery, I added in these pine picks from the craft store, and I like that they're pine picks with that simple pine cone detail on them for, again, that really rustic feel. And then if you all remember, a couple of years ago, I grabbed some cheap scrap chiffon fabric and I just tore it into strips, and I always save those and I reuse them year after year. So I just tied one of my pieces around the rim of the pot, and then I formed a bow with the other piece. And this is such a simple way to really dress up a space, add that festive feel, make it look a lot more elegant for the holidays, but it was just a couple of dollars worth of scrap fabric. So just wanted to keep up with the layering, so I brought in this vintage elmwood stool to tie in that rustic wooden detail and just make everything feel really primitive and old world. So I love this little pairing, and I like how it helps to anchor the hearth area of the fireplace. Okay, so I'm loving how the fireplace is looking so far, but we do need to talk about the awkward openings now and what we're doing with the tree, because I think normally what we're gonna do is it's going to go in this spot. I'll just remove these things and I'll use our little basket that I use every year to help elevate our shorter tree. And that's a little money saving hack that I have as well, is instead of buying a larger tree that costs substantially more, you can just buy a shorter tree and elevate it in something like a basket, or you can build, you know, a little wooden box that looks vintage or something like that, just to help give it that extra height. And it's also really nice too, because then you have area underneath the tree for taller presents. And I really like doing that. I think it just adds interest and makes everything feel really cozy. So eventually I think we will just remove this, put this in a bedroom for the winter season, and then we'll add the basket and the tree here. But for this year, I figured we have these awkward openings, why not fill one in with a tree? So this one over here, Kona's bed usually goes in there, so she likes to have that spot, so we'll keep that for her. But I think we're just gonna put the tree right here, and that'll make the space feel a little bit more cozy. Obviously it's not ideal without our built-ins done, but I think that will be kind of fun to do something different for this year until we get those in there. So I brought in our birchwood fir faux tree, and this was the first Christmas tree that we ever bought for our home. And it's also the easiest to take up and down. It literally goes up and down within minutes, and it just clicks together, and it's super light to carry. I'm using this one because it's a more narrow tree, so it fits in tighter spaces like this one. And they did discontinue the one that we have, but I believe they made the same tree just with a twinkle feature, and that one's under $200, but it looks a lot more expensive than that in my opinion. And I just love how natural it looks and the slightly like blue silvery color that the greenery has. So next I just popped on these bell garlands, and these were just some regular cheap shiny bell garlands from the craft store. And then I just mixed some matte tan acrylic paint and water, and then dabbed that mixture on the bells to give them that vintage brassy look. And I think I made these like 4 or 5 years ago now, and I use them every single year. And I love that they help to add that old world vintagey style to our tree. And then next I wanted to incorporate that burgundy accent into our ornaments. So I found these gorgeous and budget-friendly burgundy velvet ornaments. And something that I like to do that feels a little bit more elevated than the plain wire ornament hangers is use ribbon. And this ribbon was just a couple of dollars, and I think that the little bows give off a much more elegant look. It's just a simple little feminine dressy detail that adds some extra visual interest instead of kind of fading into the background. It just helps to add to the aesthetic in my opinion. And I also love the pop of color that these add. Also, the texture just feels really rich and beautiful with that velvet finish, and it just feels really chic and elegant. So next, I just wanted to add in more of that old vintagey charm. So I just used these strips of lace fabric, and again, this was just a cheap scrap fabric piece that I cut into strips, and they give off that old world European look, and I like that they feel really delicate, but also help to dress the tree up at the same time. And whether you use lace, ribbon, or fabric scraps, I think that both can help to add a nice variety to a tree because they help to layer in that soft textile element, and they also add some variation to mix in with the ornaments. So I liked how these looked so much that I ended up using the rest of the fabric to tie into a large bow for a topper for the tree. And the lace can give off almost a bohemian vibe while still feeling soft and romantic. So I love that just a couple of dollars worth of scrap fabric can really help to give our tree so much unique personality. So now that our tree feels a little bit more dressed up, I wanted to add something to soften the area around the base of the tree. And something that I've done for the last couple of years is actually just used an oversized blanket for a tree skirt. So this can be great if you don't want to invest and store just a tree skirt specifically. A blanket can totally double for this, and this was actually just a chunky knit throw that I got from Aldi for super cheap, and I actually like how it looks when it's all bunched up and wrapped around the tree with some dimension. It just helps to create that kind of cozy texture, but you could do this with a quilt, a thrifted throw, or any kind of large blanket that matches your holiday aesthetic. And for me personally, I just love the chunky neutral knits. I think that they're classic and they almost kind of resemble snow with the coloring contrasted against all of that green and red. But now I want to move on to styling our coffee table. And because I loved this garland so much and I loved the lifelike look of it, that I actually ran back to the store and bought the matching cypress wreath. And this guy was only $35, which is a really good price for a real touch wreath. And I'm actually going to use this laid flat on the table. And you could style this so many ways with different things in the center. You could add a vase, you could add a bowl with some ornaments inside, you could use a bunch of pillar candles, but here I'm going to use this glass cloche that I found at an antique store recently. And these are so fun for highlighting certain decor pieces and giving them their own little moment. You know, you could put a little ceramic house in here, gingerbread decor, ornaments, but I'm just going to keep it simple and use 2 battery operated pillar candles. And then again, I'm just going to add in that burgundy accent with our frayed edge ribbon. And this right here would be a stunning dining table centerpiece with a table runner and some candles along the table runner. I just love how simple it is, but also how classy and elegant it looks. So again, we're going to layer pieces together for that collected cozy feel. So I brought in this vintage stone tray that I had just to keep the materials more on the earthy side, and then I layered in 2 of my juniper picks. And because we're going for that casual kind of like freshly foraged look, I just used some pine cone bowl filler to give us a pop of contrast and earthy texture. And you could do the same thing with a thrifted tray, a ceramic serving platter, or a woven basket or a bowl, but I'm loving the rustic look of this so far. Also, if you wanted more of a glamorous look and a less woodsy look, you could swap the pine cones for ornaments. I just love layering bowl filler and greenery together during the holidays. So then I just layered in some coffee table books with white and green bindings to match our color scheme, and then I stacked my favorite driftwood trees on top. And these are actually from Home Goods, and they are dupes for the ones that they sell at Anthropologie, but I just love the woodsy rustic look that they give off with all of that natural and organic texture. And then again, we are making the most of this fall clearance that they have going on right now at HomeGoods, and I spotted these burgundy colored glass candles, and I actually really liked the scent of them too. So I just layered this in with my driftwood trees for another pop of that burgundy color, just to help tie the whole space together and weave that accent color throughout the room. And one of the final things that we have to do is add in our holiday pillows and blankets. And I have this chunky knit throw that I actually bought on clearance when they were discontinuing this color, but I like that it ties in that burgundy red and how it looks contrasted with our navy sofa. And then I just layered in my 2 holiday pillows on top, and basically what I do is I keep that neutral cream one out year round, and then I just add in the 2 holiday colored pillows just to make things feel fresh and festive. But I feel bad for our little girl, and I think she's missing her bed, so let's add that back in for her. Whenever I decorate for the seasons and switch up the decor, she gets really confused, so I think she's just happy to have her spot back, and I think that she sadly gets a little anxious when she sees boxes because we've moved 3 times within the span of a year this past year, so she'll be happy to know that we are finally staying put for a while and boxes don't mean moving. So I'm really loving how this is looking so far, and I think we're almost done, but after standing back and looking at the space, I did just want to add a little bit more weight to the right side of the fireplace just to help balance out the large tree without encroaching on Kona's space. So I just brought in this old vintage crate that I found at the antique store to again add in a touch of that rustic wood and give us some height. Then I stacked a planter on top, and I brought in this 4-foot burlap faux pine tree, and this is one of my favorites that I use in my decorating year after year, and I love how lifelike it looks and the rustic natural feel of it. It does come with some red berries that I removed for a more woodsy look, but I think that this does a great job at adding in some more weight to this side of the room, so it looks visually balanced, and I love the combination of all of the trees, the garland, the greenery, and the stems for that freshly foraged look. So just as a reminder, this was the space that we started with, and then this was the festive yet rustic feel that we were able to create for the holidays this year. I love all of the rustic faux greenery and the earthy natural details. We got a cozy look by layering lots of pieces together, and we got the rustic vibe by incorporating details like distressed wood, natural accents like dried oranges, pine cones, and greenery stems, and I also love the pops of burgundy that we incorporated throughout the space to give us some of that classic and timeless holiday color.